The Cathra had dominated the galactic hunting grounds for millennia, towering nearly 3 meters with razor-sharp claws and predatory instincts refined by evolution. They were apex predators who regarded most species as either prey or rivals. Zark was no exception, a veteran hunter whose reputation preceded him across 17 star systems. He had been pursuing a wounded Valari through the thick jungle canopy of Kepler 442b when he heard it, a sound that caused his sensitive ears to twitch in confusion. It was high-pitched, rhythmic, and entirely unfamiliar to anything in his vast repertoire of prey sounds. Abandoning his pursuit, Zark followed the noise through the underbrush. What he discovered challenged his comprehension of the universe. A diminutive creature, no larger than a Nari pup, sat beside the wreckage of what seemed to be an escape pod. Its skin was a pale pink, nearly translucent, and it bore no visible natural defenses, lacking claws, fangs, or armor plating. Most peculiarly, water dripped from its optical organs as it emitted those strange rhythmic sounds. Zark's predatory instincts should have activated immediately. This was evidently a weak, defenseless creature, easy prey. Yet something restrained him. Perhaps it was curiosity, or possibly the way the small being gazed up at him without the fear he was used to seeing in prey animals. The creature now produced different sounds, softer ones, and reached out its tiny appendage toward him. Zark's translator implant struggled with the rudimentary language before finally conveying meaning. "Help, please!" Against every instinct screaming in his mind, Zark found himself gently lifting the small being. It felt almost weightless, and its skin was remarkably delicate. How had such a vulnerable species managed to survive long enough to achieve space travel? The escape pod's databanks revealed the creature's origins. Earth, a modest planet situated within an inconspicuous system. The beings referred to themselves as humans, and this specific individual was identified as a child named Emma, merely 7 years of age. Her family's research vessel had fallen victim to a pirate attack, and she had been launched in the escape pod by her parents prior to the ship's annihilation. Zark encountered a moral quandary. His kind lacked any notion of nurturing the offspring of another species. In Cathra society, weakness was eradicated rather than safeguarded. However, as he observed the human child, Emma, snuggling against his armored chest for warmth, a profound shift occurred in his perspective. He resolved to transport her to the nearest space station, Nexus Prime, where it was certain that someone could provide her with proper care. The voyage lasted 3 standard days, during which Zarak acquired insights that challenged his entire understanding of survival and evolution. Despite her evident delicacy, Emma exhibited extraordinary adaptability. She rapidly grasped basic Cathra vocabulary, learned to operate the ship's food dispensers, and most astonishingly, displayed no fear of him whatsoever. Upon their arrival at Nexus Prime, Zark anticipated merely handing over the child and returning to his hunting endeavors. Instead, he found himself remaining close as various alien officials assessed Emma's circumstances. She clung to his clawed hand, and he recognized with unsettling clarity that he had developed an attachment to the small human. It was at that moment that Captain Sarah Chen made her entrance. Zarth had encountered numerous species throughout his journeys, yet he had never witnessed anything akin to the transformation that transpired when Captain Chen, evidently another human, became aware of Emma's predicament. The woman's eyes, initially filled with gratitude and relief, hardened into a gaze that even stirred Zark's predatory instincts. "Where are the pirates responsible for her family's death?" Captain Chin inquired, her tone laced with a barely restrained ferocity that Zark recognized. The station administrator, a bureaucratic Zapirian, waved his hand dismissively. The Crimson Nebula Raider Group operates in the Outer Rim. There is nothing that can be done. They are too well armed and organized for. I wasn't inquiring whether something could be done, Captain Shin interjected. I was asking about their location. Over the next few hours, Zarthk observed with intrigue as more humans arrived. Not officials or authorities, but civilian merchants, explorers, and colonists who had learned about Emma through their communication networks. They arrived with supplies, offered homes, and most notably volunteered for the mission Captain Chen was orchestrating. "We are going after the Crimson Nebula," she declared to the expanding assembly of humans. "Not for vengeance, nor for justice, but because no child should ever experience the isolation that Emma felt." Zark anticipated perhaps a dozen volunteers. Instead, over 200 humans rallied to the cause within 6 hours. Ships began to arrive, cargo holders hastily equipped with weaponry, exploration vessels filled with volunteers who had never engaged in combat, and even luxury yachts whose owners had liquidated their assets to acquire military-grade shields. "This is insanity," Zark remarked to Captain Chen as they observed the makeshift fleet come together. "The Crimson Nebula possesses 40 ships, all of military caliber. Your people will be annihilated." Captain Chen smiled, and Zark finally comprehended why other species spoke in hushed tones about humans in the darker recesses of the galaxy. "You saved one of ours," she stated plainly. "Now you will witness what occurs when humans reciprocate the kindness." The ensuing battle defied every tactical principle Zark was familiar with. The human fleet should have been obliterated within moments. Instead, they fought with a coordinated desperation that approached the supernatural. Ships that should have retreated pressed on. Their assaults continued until their hulls were compromised. Pilots who ought to have ejected remained at their controls to ensure their final shots were effective. However, it was not the tactical genius or even the selflessness that astonished Zark. It was the instant when the flagship of the Crimson Nebula commenced broadcasting terms of surrender. And Captain Chen's reply resonated across all channels. "Surrender is not an option. You have taken the lives of a human child's family. Today, you will understand why humans fiercely protect their own." When the last pirate vessel ceased to function, Zark finally grasped what he had observed. Humans were not merely another species fighting for survival in a perilous galaxy. They represented something far more formidable, a race that had transformed love into a weapon. As Emma embraced his leg during the victory celebration, tears of joy rather than fear cascading down her cheeks, Zark recognized that rescuing her had imparted the most significant lesson of his existence. In a cosmos teeming with predators, the most fearsome beings were those who opted to safeguard rather than pursue. And humanity, he now comprehended, were the supreme protectors.